Chapter 1. The Brain and Trauma. Understanding the Invisible Wounds. Trauma is not just an emotional experience, it's a biological event encoded in the brain and body. When faced with extreme stress, the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, goes into overdrive, signaling danger and triggering the release of adrenaline and cortisol. This activates the fight or flight response, preparing the body to react to immediate threats. While this mechanism is protective in the moment, prolonged activation can leave the brain hypervigilant, leading to chronic anxiety, emotional instability, and sleep disturbances. Simultaneously, trauma affects the hippocampus, the memory center that distinguishes past from present. Damage or dysfunction here can lead to flashbacks, intrusive memories, and difficulty contextualizing experiences. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational thought and decision-making, often becomes less active under chronic stress, reducing the ability to regulate emotions and make measured choices. Trauma, therefore, is not a personal weakness. It is a neurological imprint. Understanding the brain's response to trauma fosters self-compassion. Survivors can recognize that fear, hypervigilance, and emotional dysregulation are survival mechanisms. Neuroscience empowers recovery by showing that the brain can change. New experiences and intentional practices can retrain neural circuits. Healing does not erase memory, but reshapes the way the brain processes it. Knowledge of trauma neurobiology lays the foundation for practical recovery strategies, highlighting the importance of targeting the brain and body simultaneously to rebuild safety, control, and resilience. Chapter 2. Neuroplasticity, How the Brain Can Rewire After Trauma. One of the most profound insights of modern neuroscience is neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself in response to experience. Traumatic events can create persistent, maladaptive neural patterns, but the brain is not fixed. With intentional practice, it can form new connections that foster resilience, emotional regulation, and healing. Neuroplasticity operates through repetition and reinforcement. Every time a person practices mindfulness, engages in therapy, or experiences safety, the prefrontal cortex strengthens, helping to regulate the amygdala and reduce fear responses. Similarly, forming positive relationships and achieving small goals activate reward circuits, releasing dopamine and reinforcing adaptive pathways. Recovery through neuroplasticity is incremental. Small, consistent actions, deep breathing exercises, journaling, movement, or meditation signal to the brain that safety and stability are possible. Over time, these practices reshape the neural networks that encode stress, anxiety, and hypervigilance. Neuroscience reveals that healing is not abstract. It is measurable in the brain's structure and function. Trauma survivors can harness neuroplasticity to transform patterns of fear into pathways of hope and resilience, demonstrating that the brain's wiring is not destiny, it is potential. Chapter 3. The Body Remembers, Somatic Pathways to Healing. Trauma is stored not just in the mind, but in the body. Chronic stress floods the system with cortisol and adrenaline, which can lead to tension, pain, digestive issues, and fatigue. Neuroscience shows that unprocessed trauma manifests physiologically, meaning healing requires addressing the body as much as the brain. Somatic practices, including yoga, movement therapy, breathwork, and body-focused psychotherapy, help release these stored patterns. By reconnecting with physical sensations in a safe environment, the nervous system can learn to downregulate hyperarousal. For instance, slow diaphragmatic breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, signaling safety and reducing amygdala hyperactivity. The mind-body connection is central to trauma recovery. Physical practices provide direct access to pre-verbal experiences that may be inaccessible through talk therapy alone. Over time, somatic regulation strengthens neural circuits associated with calm, presence, and safety. Trauma recovery, therefore, is an integrated process. The body's memory and the brain's memory must both be recalibrated to foster true healing. Chapter 4. Memory Reconsolidation, Changing the Story of Your Past. Neuroscience reveals that memories are not fixed, they are dynamic. Memory reconsolidation refers to the brain's ability to update old, traumatic memories with new emotional context. Traumatic memories often remain locked with fear or shame, causing flashbacks or persistent distress. By safely revisiting these memories, the emotional intensity can be decoupled. Therapeutic techniques such as EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, trauma-focused CBT, and guided exposure allow the brain to process memories without re-traumatization. When a memory is retrieved in a safe context, the brain can integrate it differently, replacing terror with understanding and safety. This process rewires neural circuits, reducing emotional reactivity and increasing resilience. Memory reconsolidation emphasizes that the past can be transformed. Trauma survivors can learn to hold painful experiences with new perspective, reclaiming agency over memories that once controlled them. Healing is not forgetting, it is rewriting the brain's emotional response to the past. Chapter 5. The role of emotion regulation and the prefrontal cortex. Emotion regulation is central to trauma recovery. The prefrontal cortex, which governs reasoning and self-control, often becomes suppressed after trauma. When the amygdala is overactive, emotions can feel overwhelming, leading to anxiety, anger, or numbness. Practices such as mindfulness, cognitive restructuring, and breath-focused exercises strengthen the prefrontal cortex. Neuroscience shows that repeated regulation strategies enhance top-down control over emotional responses, reducing impulsivity and hyperarousal. Visualization techniques, grounding exercises, and labeling emotions, I feel scared, also help the brain distinguish between present reality and past threats. Regulating emotion is not suppressing feelings, it is creating neural balance. By strengthening the prefrontal cortex, trauma survivors gain the ability to respond thoughtfully, rather than react reflexively. This neurological empowerment fosters resilience, agency, and long-term emotional stability. Chapter 6. The reward system and reclaiming joy. Trauma can disrupt the brain's reward system, dulling pleasure and motivation, and survivors may feel disconnected or emotionally numb. Neuroscience shows that the dopamine system, which governs reward and motivation, can be retrained through consistent positive experiences. Small wins, creative pursuits, physical activity, and social connection stimulate dopamine release, reinforcing adaptive behaviors. Gratitude practices and mindful engagement amplify this effect, teaching the brain to associate life with reward rather than threat. Over time, these interventions restore motivation, curiosity, and joy, which are critical for recovery. The brain's reward circuits are powerful tools for rebuilding life after trauma. By intentionally activating pleasure pathways, survivors rewire the brain to recognize safety, achievement, and connection, reclaiming the vitality that trauma suppressed. Chapter 7. The social brain. Healing through connection. Human beings are inherently social, and neuroscience shows that social connection is a critical factor in trauma recovery. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, reduces stress and promotes healing. Conversely, social isolation can exacerbate trauma symptoms. Safe, supportive relationships, whether through therapy, friends, or support groups, signal to the brain that danger has passed. Positive interactions regulate the amygdala, strengthen the prefrontal cortex, and reinforce reward circuits. Empathy, trust, and belonging are not optional. They are biological necessities for recalibrating the nervous system. Through connection, survivors learn that vulnerability does not equal danger. Neuroscience highlights that trauma recovery is relational. Rebuilding trust in others rebuilds trust in the self, creating a feedback loop of safety, attachment, and resilience. Chapter 8. Practical neuroscience tools. Steps to rewire, rebuild, and recover. Recovery from trauma requires applying neuroscience in daily life. Evidence-based practices include mindfulness and meditation, regulates the amygdala, and strengthens prefrontal control. Somatic practices, yoga, breathwork, and movement release stored trauma. Therapy, EMDR, CBT, and trauma-focused therapy enable memory reconsolidation. Reward activation, celebrate small wins, and engage in enjoyable activities. Social support, cultivate safe relationships to repair attachment and trust. Journaling and reflection, process emotions, and gain perspective. The key is consistency. The brain changes slowly but reliably through repeated practice. Over weeks and months, neural circuits adapt, reducing hypervigilance, improving emotional regulation, and restoring a sense of safety. Trauma does not define the brain. With intentional neuroscience-informed strategies, survivors can reclaim their lives, heal deeply, and cultivate resilience that lasts a lifetime.